Hey guys, so this is my presentation on the causes of World War II. Sorry I'm not there right now in real life. I am at home, very sickly, so there's that. I'm going to go right into it. So this is post-World War I. In this time frame, all of Europe is just destroyed. Economically, socially, politically, and physically. They are in terrible condition and equally share just terrible crisis. So this is an actual picture of Germany, France, and Britain, which were the three main countries of Europe to be hit the hardest, and most of the fighting occurred within. So a reason why they were doing so terrible was that a lot of their farmland was destroyed, which was a staple crop that they could sell. It led their economy to fall and a lot of people to starve. They were in just terrible condition. And since their economy was failing, they were unable to pay back the United States for a lot of weapons that they had bought. So they decided, in order to get back their money and to rebuild Europe, they were going to place all the blame on good old Germany. They were like, you got pain? Well, you deserve it, because you're like the whole entire cause of all this trouble. So France and Britain were the two main European powers who were bashing on Germany, saying that you have to pay everything, and your allies, they don't have to do anything. Like, it's not their problem. It's yours. It's all yours. And Germany was like a little peeved off about this. They were really shocked because they did not understand why everyone was being so unreasonable about it, which goes into the next thing that they were forced to sign, which was the Treaty of Versailles. Now, the Treaty of Versailles was meant to rebuild Europe into a new, peaceful, United Nations type of world, but instead it just really bashed on Germany, which is Germany at the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, where they were like, how are we supposed to know that there would be consequences? There were so many consequences. Their military was completely like demilitarized, and their economy was like bashed because they had to pay so much reparations to the big powers, the United States, Britain, and France, and also all of their territory was taken away, so they were really economically deprived because a lot of their resources were from the territories that they had stripped from them. So in paying their reparations, they were unable to. Here's them with $3 because they had nothing. No one had anything except for the United States, of course. So Germany decided to borrow money from the United States so they could pay Britain, and Britain had to pay money to the United States because the United States basically funded the whole war and all the weaponry and all that. So it was a vicious cycle, and Germany ended up just becoming more and more in economic crisis, like the whole world was, but mostly Germany. So Germany had no money, like, at all. So it decided to borrow all of it from the United States, and what from the United States couldn't lend to them, they decided to print their money. Oh yeah, that's a good idea, Germany. Keep doing that. No, because now they have like a bunch of money with zero value. They faced serious inflation, which just made them into even more of an economically crisis. So, good job, Germany. And then here's Japan. Japan was also just kind of a mess. The economy was extremely crappy, even though Japan wouldn't play a huge role yet. It will be, because it is the main power that leads the United States to enter the war, and then the United States basically did a whole number on the war, so that's that. Here are the failures of the League of Nations and the failures of appeasement. The League of Nations was trash. I'm sorry, League of Nations, but you guys did nothing. And appeasement was just such like a weenie way of dealing with things. It's just terrible. So basically the League of Nations was to unite all the big superpowers, but it was extremely like inclusive. It like told all of the enemies of World War I, like, you can't join, which just peeved them off even more. Like, I don't know why they could have just not let them in. There was no point in that. But anyways, Woodrow Wilson was to be leading this whole thing, but when he went back to the United States was like, nah, bro, we're not going to let you do this. Like, it's not our problem. That seems like a European mess, and we don't need to be in that. And Woodrow Wilson was like, but I created this thing. And they were like, nah, better not. So that's Woodrow Wilson. That's him wondering what the League of Nations would have been like, because he never joined, because he's dumb. And here's appeasement. So once Hitler started invading things, such as Rhineland, Neville Chamberlain was like, okay, we're gonna let you keep what you have so far, but no more, bro, okay? That's it. And Hitler was like, well, I'm gonna do whatever I want anyways. And Neville Chamberlain played himself because it did nothing. Now, this is the rise of Hitler and Nazi Germany, which may be the only or the biggest cause of World War II. So the reason that Hitler rose to power was for several reasons. One of them was that he prided himself on becoming a primary race, the Assyrian race, which meant that he was going to purify all of Europe. He wanted to remove all the minorities, such as gays, anyone of color, but most importantly, the Jews. He rose up saying, like, I hate the Jews, which is not very nice of him, but nevertheless, Germany really liked him because they were in such economic crisis, and he also promised that he would come in and just give them all jobs and make their lives so much better, because once the Jews were gone, they would be better. But that was an entire mess anyways. Also, Germany was really like confused on why they didn't win World War I. They saw themselves winning, and then at the last second they just surrendered, and the people of Germany had this nationalism that didn't really pay off. And so when they were heading into World War II, led by Hitler, who was priding himself on nationalism, they were like, heck yeah, this guy sounds pretty cool, let's do that. And then Hitler also made a bunch of promises that he couldn't keep, such as not invading Russia. By the way, this meme is from David. Thank you, David. Stalin was like, let's sign this non-aggressional pact. I don't like you and you don't like me, but let's not invade each other, because, you know, that's not how homies work. But Hitler did anyways, because we know Hitler, always making good decisions. These are the Soviets. When Hitler went back on his non-aggression pact and invaded Russia, they were really shocked, a little peeved off. They were like, that doesn't seem right. We agreed not to do this. And then the last straw is when Hitler invades Poland. So when Hitler invades Poland, Britain is finally like, ooh, yeah, don't do that. In the Treaty of Versailles, you said that you can't do that, you can't expand because we agreed that you can't. And then Hitler's like, I'm gonna do whatever the heck I want anyways, like he usually does. And he just had no respect for them and made a mockery of this entire thing. And where was the League of Nations? Not doing anything. This is the League of Nations telling Hitler that he can't invade Poland. Just a mess. There's a bad word there, but who cares? So once Britain starts seeing that, okay, Hitler is like invading a lot, basically they're like shocked, because Hitler also invaded France, and France was supposed to be this big superpower that's not supposed to be invaded. So yeah, it's a mess now. But now we get into Japan, which is an even bigger mess and gets the United States to join in, which is a big problem for everyone. So this is Hitler. Hitler antagonizes Japan by saying, oh, you know what, like, we want to take over the world and you want to take over the world, like, let's be best buds. Like, I got Europe and you got the Pacific, and I think that's gonna be cool. And so he sends him an allied message, like, hey, we should be allies, and then so they do. So Japan starts invading China. First they invade, like, the outer parts of China, and the League of Nations is like, no, don't do that. If you're in the League of Nations, you're not supposed to take over the world. And Japan's like, how about I do anyways? So there's that. Everyone's telling Japan, you should stop doing that because that's not like what it's about, which just goes in more of the failures of League of Nations. They didn't do anything. And then Japan was like, well, we're going to invade the entire ocean, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then there's the United States, who's like, hey, maybe we're going to do something about it. The United States decides to cut off the oil from Japan. And Japan is super angry about this because they need the oil to start invading stuff. They're like, well, if we don't have oil, like, going through our machinery and our tanks and all that, how are we supposed to invade China? And US is like, not my problem, because we're friends with Britain, who's not friends with Germany, who's friends with you. And so we can't be friends with you if you're friends with Germany, because Germany's not friends with you, Britain. If that makes sense. Japan was really peeved off still, because they were like, we need this money. And they were like, well, now we got beef because you don't want to supply us oil. So Japan decides that they are going to bomb Pearl Harbor, even though the United States this far says that they are neutral and not involved in World War II, but Japan antagonizes them anyways. U.S. is trying to mind their own business, even though they're not really, because they're selling weapons to Britain, and Japan bombs Pearl Harbor. This is basically them sending the United States a new war request, and the United States accepts, and by accepting, they peeve off Germany, who is allied with Japan. So Germany declares war on the United States, so the United States enters World War II, which is when I like to think that World War II has officially begun. Even though it has like been fighting for a while, I think that when the United States enters, it's like full-blown. Oh, so that's it. Thank you guys for watching my rambling for 13 minutes. I hope you learned something. Go look up some more historical memes, and thank you.